Gamers, we're back with another video. We're doing an emergency pre-release tier list. What is the tier list? It's only going to be for the new civs. Why? I just had this discussion with Twitch chat. I don't want to mix in like Chinese and Byzantines because I have only played with the new civs for the past 4 or 5 days. We also had a TC nerf change, wall change recently, and I could mix in the old civs, but that would be just guessing based on nothing, and it's kind of pointless, in my opinion, to make that kind of video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 tier lists. One is going to be for the top level, what I think is good in my opinion, which civs have a lot of potential, like a lot of skill potential and how strong they are in the current state. And I'm going to do one where I'm going to make a tier list based on how well I think the civs will perform in leagues under diamond, okay? So like gold, platinum, maybe low diamond as well, based on the difficulty of the civs. Because balance in gold doesn't matter. What matters is how easy civ is to play or how hard it is to deal with that civ. With that being said, let's get started. So for the top level play, I think Order of the Dragon in its current form will most likely not be very successful. I'm not saying it's going to be unplayable, but the units are very, very expensive. It's very easy to counter the Order of the Dragon. Like, if you have one horseman, you know, running around harassing, you can't quite surround the villagers. All the enemy needs to do is hard counter the units in order to beat Order of the Dragon. And the problem with Order of the Dragon compared to HRE, Order of the Dragon men-at-arms are actually not that good because they don't have Heavy Mace's upgrade. So yes, they hit pretty hard, but you cannot make men-at-arms with Order of the Dragon that are gonna kill everything, right? You have to mix in crossbows, you have to mix in archers, which is fine. But the economy is not as strong as HRE's, and that is very noticeable when I played. I'm not sure if it necessarily requires some buffs or something, but I do think at the top level, Order of the Dragon will be struggling. At the top level, all the games that I've seen, I think I'm the only guy that lost Order of the Dragon recently, and that was due to me messing up like really badly about 5 times, and I still barely lost. And I think Order of the Dragon in the games that I've seen went like 1 in 10 in win rate at the top level. So another thing is Order of the Dragon is a very basic civ in terms of how complicated it is to play. So based on that, it should perform really well right now because it's not that complicated. But in fact, the opposite is happening. So D tier. Next one we're going to be talking about is Jeanne d'Arc. I think this civ is going to be an S tier. Coming into pro play, the reason is very simple. The hero is very, very strong, and the pro players will make the most out of it. It's going to be very hard to kill the hero at the top level play. The hero can be min-maxed very, very efficiently at the top level play, you know, going around killing wolves, killing boars, harassing the villagers, keeping the hero alive, and using all the hero abilities to basically their maximum potential. So I think Jeanne d'Arc is going to be very, very strong, and it's probably going to be in everyone's lineup for the next while. Next civ we're going to be talking about is going to be, let's do Byzantines. Now, Byzantines I'm going to put in A tier. I think Byzantines are actually really strong, but it's going to take a little bit for people to learn how to play it more. So once people learn how to play it, I think Byzantines will be S tier because the amount of options you have with mercenaries, the fact that you have a free resource gathering, your farms are cheaper. I think I kind of look at Byzantines like China, but being able to be more open, like with a little bit of less economy, but more ability to be out on the map. Their cataphracts are also very good. All their unique units are very good. So I think that once people learn how to play it a little bit more at the top level, it's going to be super, super good. But for now, I'm going to put it into an A tier. And I'm basing this off not to its like maximum potential, but how strong they are now in the hands of the players with the current meta that we have. Okay, so I think right now it's A tier, but it's gonna jump up very, very soon. Next one we'll talk about is gonna be Japanese. I'm not very impressed with Japanese, I gotta say. I think the Japanese feudal age is very weak. Very weak. And in the recent show matches and tournaments that we have seen, I've only seen Japanese being played on hybrid maps because their fishing ships cost 45, and on the land maps they are not used very frequently. The reason for that is their units in feudal are just really weak compared to the other civs. Their archers are faster movement, but they have 4 damage per shot, which doesn't make them very good in these long feudal battles. I don't think that Japanese is necessarily a bad civ. It's just at the top level in the current meta where aggression is happening, I don't think Japanese are good. But if you get past the feudal, where you're a castle or maybe imperial, Japanese is really, really, really good. So I feel like they're probably broken in imperial. Their units, Ozotsu, I think that's what they're called, Ozotsu, they're broken as hell and they'll probably get a nerf. But in feudal, I do find them a little bit lacking. And then Shinobi are used on water maps quite well and quite efficiently, but Shinobi on land maps are pretty ass, to be fair. They're not that hard to deal with. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put it there. Then we got Ayyubids and Jushi's Legacy. Now, Ayyubids is a really rough one because I have seen some really good builds and I've seen some really bad builds from people. But overall, I'm going to have to say Ayyubids are probably going to be played a lot in tournaments together with Byzantines and Jeanne d'Arc. I think Ayyubids have so many options that it's going to take like 2-3 months to fully finish cooking up this civ. There's so many, like you have 8 wing options. The amount of possible builds is crazy. The amount of possible interactions with wings is crazy. The wings also scale based on when you age up with that wing. So it's a very simple civ, but the potential of it is very complicated due to the amount of choices you have. And Ayyubids are actually probably the strongest civ on water maps and hybrid maps because one of their wings is faster age up. It's a culture wing. You age up 45 seconds faster and it's cheaper. So you basically age up minute and 10 minutes and 15 seconds faster than you normally would. And on water, whoever starts getting ships out first is going to be in a good spot. So they're very strong on land maps, very strong on water maps. And, you know, I can see them becoming an S tier civ, but they're very, very good. And last but not least, Jushi's Legacy. I'm going to have to put Jushi's Legacy into A tier as well. I think it's very, very strong. A lot of players actually think that this is the best civ right now at the high level. We've seen a lot of people play it. There's already like pretty clean builds figured out for this civ, which is basically reach Song Dynasty super fast into double town center. And then you don't go out for the food on the map at all because you have cheaper farms and granaries. So people transition to the farms really, really quick. And then you just mass spam unit. I think that it is good, but I feel like the way people are playing it right now, they're kind of playing it like China is played, like same play style. And maybe that's how you play it. But if I had the option, like do I play Jushi's Legacy something unique or do I play it just like China? I would prefer to just play China. Yeah, like it's the same thing. Like if you play Ayyubids like you play Abbasid, I would just prefer to play Abbasid instead. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I do think it's a very strong civ. It's a very solid civ, so thumbs up. Now, regarding Twitch chat has asked me, why don't you just put you know, some civ based on where you think they would be and so on and so forth, and I'll give you guys a couple of examples that I've had or I've seen. So Rus is a very good example of extremely strong civ that everyone's familiar with. There was a match where I lost versus Jeanne d'Arc like 4 times in a row. in practice games, and then I picked Rus, and I absolutely fucking dented Jeanne d'Arc in. So now, does that mean that Jeanne d'Arc sucks? Does that mean that Rus is OP? I don't know, because we don't have enough interactions with the old and the new civs. But if you're watching this video on YouTube, today, when this video is released, we're going to have a show match between Vortex Lucifron and Papipo Wham, and they're going to be fighting old civs versus new civs. So we're going to get some more answers. So I can't tell you exactly where it stands, because I think, for example, Order of the Dragon would do okay against Rus, potentially. But then some of the other civ, like Japanese with Shinobi, won't be able to do anything against Rus. Byzantines might do decently well against Rus. Ayyubids might do decently well against Rus. It all comes down to matchups, and that's why I can't really like put Rus anywhere and base it off of that, even though I would love to do that. I think there's also going to be a lot of, you know, just like with the old civs, you have some civs counter others, like China counters Delhi. I am sure you're going to have that interaction with old civs versus new civs as well, where maybe Order of the Dragon, you know, is not the greatest out of these 6 at the top level, but maybe it's going to like absolutely destroy English, you know, or something like that. I'm just giving a random example. So we have yet to see that. There's so many matchups to figure out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same for lower leagues. So again, I don't call this balance because obviously people in the low league will not play the civs to the full potential. I am going to base this off of how easy the civs are to play and pick up, and how well I think people will do with them, at least initially on the start. And funnily enough, I think that if you're gold or platinum, I think Order of the Dragon is probably going to be an S tier civ. The reason why it's an S tier civ for lower leagues is because the units are very easy to control. It's a lot easier to have to make 1 unit than to make 2 units, so it's easier to macro with. Even though you require more resources, you're gonna get used to it really quickly. And once you do, you know, a knight coming in your base is not gonna kill a villager or 2. Order of the Dragon Knight has 400 health, I think, in Castle Age, and it 2-shots villagers. So if you're kind of caught napping, Lens Connect are gonna obliterate your army, but with proper kiting at the top level, that doesn't really happen. So in my opinion, I mean, this is a 1-star civ. It is very simple to play. If you've played HRE, you're going to be able to transition to Order of the Dragon pretty smoothly. But they are not the same civ. Order of the Dragon uses archers a lot, and archers, funnily enough, are probably their best unit. So if you want to play with basically smaller armies but stronger units and more archer-based comp instead of what HRE is currently, then try Order of the Dragon. Next one is going to be Byzantines. They're too hard. I mean, I don't know what else to say. They're too complicated for people to play. They're very hard at the high level, and they're not going to be any easier at the low level. Again, this is for release. This is like, I'm basing this off of how well I think people will do for the first week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, right? I think that eventually, obviously, people are going to improve, but even then, if it improves in a month, like maybe it's going to be B or C tier in how well people can play it. If people in lower leagues cannot play China, they will struggle with Byzantines a lot more. So D tier for now. Next one we're going to be talking about is going to be, let's go with, let's put Ayyubids here for now. You know, Abbasid is a 1-tier civ. I would say Ayyubid is a 2-tier civ. It's a little bit more complex in terms of what it can offer, and there are some extra things you need to pay attention to, but I don't think it will necessarily be really difficult. I think it's just going to be, you know, people will learn it. They're not going to play it perfectly, but you don't need to play Ayyubids perfectly to get the most value out of it, if that makes sense. So we're going to go with it there. Jeanne d'Arc, I'm going to go with C tier. It might even be a D tier, to be completely honest with you guys, but I'm going to put it in C tier for now. The only reason I feel like it's not D tier is because it doesn't have any new mechanics or new units. It has like a new unit from the hero, but it's not something you need to necessarily learn. And I think Jeanne d'Arc is, as you know, as far as buildings go and units, people will be able to adapt from French to her civ really easily. But the hero aspect is very, very hard. It's not hard to understand, it's hard to execute, which is the biggest issue of low league players. Like for example, for Byzantines, you gotta have knowledge and to be able to execute it. For Jeanne d'Arc, it's like there's not much knowledge, but it is very micro intensive, and I think people in low leagues are just gonna lose hero over and over. It is very, very easy to lose the hero, but once you level it up, I can see, you know, people having easier time to using her and to, you know, to her full potential. But you have to also attack the wolves, you have to attack the boars, which is kind of like Rus, which is where already a lot of you know, people in low league are struggling playing Rus and killing the animals. So I think that it's going to be pretty hard to play, at least for a little while, until people get used to it. If you've ever seen people in low league, sometimes they forget their scout for a while, and Jeanne d'Arc is something you need to not only keep active and keep with your army, but you need to keep it alive, and you need to use the abilities constantly, right? So next, Japanese and Jushi's Legacy. Where do I put these two? Japanese has a lot of unique stuff, but I don't think they're necessarily hard to play. You know, I'm not looking at Japanese and like, I actually think they're I'm gonna go like this actually. I actually think that Japanese are a 2-star. I've rated them a 2-star civ in the difficulty tier list, and now after playing it a little bit, I don't think it's a complicated civ. Like, yeah, it has all the unique units, right? It has unique buildings. But some of the things are easier with Japanese. For example, you don't need a mill, you just build houses. You don't need a mining camp and then blacksmith. Your mining camp is your blacksmith. You get extra stone when you mine gold, you get extra gold when you mine stone. So instead of building a tower and then having to go on stone to mine it, to upgrade it, you'll probably have an extra stone kind of trickling in from that. Not to mention the town centers being upgraded to rockets is going to make you know, defensive players in lower leagues maybe, you know, able to survive longer. Their units are not really hard to micro. They are mostly just A move units. You do need to make bannermen, yes, that is true. But so does Ottoman have to make Mechters, and I think low league players do that just fine. So I think bannermen are not going to be issue. And actually, Mechter are harder to control than bannermen, because once bannerman dies, it actually leaves the banner on the field for 30 seconds. So it's not even a biggest deal if you lose it. And I think everything the Japanese has is pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, it's unique, but it's not something like, oh my god, I gotta figure out how to place my farms and how to do that and how to do this, right? So, yeah, I think once people learn what the units do, you're gonna be fine. If you want, you know, which units to make, just spam samurai, and then if they're making, you know, crossbows, you can make archers. If they're making armored units, go samurai, and then onamusha, and you'll be fine. It ain't that complicated. And then late game Japanese is very, very strong, where some of the low league games obviously tend to go to, so you will be more than fine there. Jushi's Legacy. Now this one's a little tricky, and I'm actually gonna put this on pair with Byzantines for one simple reason. It's a variation of China, and I would actually argue that it is a harder variation of China, not because of the buildings, not because of the units, not because of the dynasties, but for one reason only, and that is it does not have Barbican. And if people in low leagues struggle with China as much as they do with Barbican, you will definitely struggle a lot more with Jushi's Legacy without Barbican. There's no safety net for you to, you know, put a Barbican and not worry about that resource in the early game. You have to basically imagine playing China with no Barbican. That's kind of how their economy works. Obviously, their dynasties and their units work differently, but it is a lot harder to defend early game with Jushi's Legacy than it is to defend with China. So in that sense, I do think it's a hard civ to play, and I do think that you will, you know, be losing a lot of units and having issues with it. So there it is. Obviously, I cannot know for sure that this is exactly what's going to happen. This is just my opinion after playing these civs since Thursday. So I've been playing them for, this is 4th day, and I've been playing for 14, 15 hours a day. And this is kind of where I'm at right now. And like I said, I try to look at this from, like, you know, top level point of view, and also a lower league point of view based on difficulty. So this is how I rate them. Let me know if you agree. YouTube gamers, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this emergency pre-release tier list. The next tier list will probably be in about 2 weeks. Once we have a little bit more knowledge, I'm gonna throw down another tier list, because every day, like, we're figuring out builds, we're figuring out new stuff, so who knows what's gonna change in 2 weeks. That's it. YouTube gamers, thank you for watching. Check them out on Twitch. I'm probably live right now. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.